I would start my story basically really at almost the beginning, which is I was raised as a Shiite. And I was pretty serious about it at an early age. I mean, I was a red-blooded American kid. I was born in Detroit. So I thought Islam was true. And by definition, then everything that contradicted it in whatever ways has to be false. So I'd ask a question: why? Why are you a Christian? And what I discovered was, in the beginning, some really sort of shocking responses. The answer was, because my parents go to a Presbyterian church on Christmas and Easter, but you haven't thought through it at all. Tradition is your reason? Really? Tradition is your reason? And I would lay into them, things like, the Bible's been changed, you can't trust it, the Trinity makes no sense. My goal was to eventually say, okay, look, you might doubt this, but Islam is actually great because it fills in those gaps. When I was an undergraduate at the University of Michigan, these two guys who were going door to door talking with people about Jesus, but they came to our door in our apartment, and I made these guys pretty uncomfortable for hours at a time because I would ask them really hard questions. So we eventually developed this mutual interest in each other, and they would come repeatedly over and over again to the apartment. They would offer answers. Sometimes they give you the best answer you can give a person. I don't know. I'll get back to you. And that gave them lots of credibility in my mind. And then they had the integrity to research and get back to me. And they did that over and over again. And I wanted to knock the faith out of these two guys, not because I wanted to have them walk away destitute and of no faith, but I wanted them to actually see Islam as true. So I'm walking down the street in Ann Arbor, and there's these Gideons who are handing out Bibles. And I get a Bible from a Gideon. And I'm like, I'm going to read this thing, and I'm going to try to find a fundamental contradiction. Because, if the Bible's been changed, then there should be rampant contradictions. And I come across in Luke, John the Baptist is baptizing people, and people are coming to him. And he says something fascinating. He says, who told you to flee from the wrath to come? Meaning, of course, God's judgment for your sin. Who told you to flee from this? But the thing that really captured me was, he said, do not even begin to think to yourself you have Abraham as your father. What he's really saying there is that if you're relying on your ethnic heritage or even your religious heritage to get you the truth or to get you into heaven, you're looking up at the wrong thing. He says, God can raise up children of Abraham from the stones. In other words, God can make one just like you out of a rock. Your DNA is not what saves you. Your tradition is not what saves you. Truth is what saves you. That bothered me a lot. I'm sitting there reading this. And the reason why it bothered me was because I had been asking for years, Christians, why are you a Christian? And they would say tradition, and I'd say not good enough. And now I'm reading this book, the Bible, it's the same thing. John the Baptist is saying tradition is not good enough. He's agreeing with me. In all those years that I had sort of put Christians on the back foot, none of them got the chance to ask me, why are you a Muslim? And I had given them my reasons, by the way. I gave them all my evidences and my arguments, but they didn't ask me personally, why is it so important to you? And the answer was tradition. I was supposed to be that. So that day I decided I am going to follow whatever is true, tradition or not. John the Baptist's words got me thinking, or got me realizing that I have this confirmation bias and I ought to see things as objectively as I can. But now you're faced with the problem, because the Quran and the Bible don't say the same things about a lot of things. They say a lot of the same things in some areas, but in the key important areas they don't. Because the central heart of the biblical message is that human beings have sinned, and we all sin, and we have a fundamental sin nature, and that sin nature prevents us from doing things that would please a God who is the standard of justice and perfection. And so we need someone who's not us to save us from us. But Islam says that we do need God's forgiveness. I mean, it calls him oft-forgiving, most merciful. It's one of the most common things about God in the Quran. But that mercy is in fact earned. You have to do good works. Your good deeds need to outweigh your bad deeds, and if they do, then you'll go to heaven. I spent a lot of time trying to harmonize these two books. And as I was looking into it, more and more, I'm looking into the history of this. I began to look and to see, okay, is the Bible actually telling me true things about Jesus? What he said, and then what he did. And as over the course of the years as I was studying this stuff, I began to see something, that not only is the Bible preserved in telling me what happened in history, but it's corroborated by actual history. And I began to see there's some important things that the gospel message tells us about God's greatness. You see, if God is the greatest possible being, and every Christian and every Muslim believes this, that God is the greatest possible being, then certain things logically follow. If God is the greatest possible being, then he would express the greatest possible moral ethic, and that would be love. Well, what is the greatest possible way we can conceive of to express love? You know someone truly loves you when they're willing to do something that helps you, even if it hurts them. In other words, self-sacrifice is the greatest expression of love. I remember during this whole search that all the intellectual stuff finally coalesced, finally became a thing in my heart, because I saw the words in the pages of the Bible. Romans chapter 5, verse 8. For God demonstrates his love, not our love, but his greatest possible love, his self-sacrificial love, in that while we were sinners, those who hate God, Christ died for us. That to me is the greatest possible being expressing the greatest possible ethic in the greatest possible way. Yes, we sacrifice for those who love us back, but we don't sacrifice for those who hate us. And God looked at us as sinners, people who chose our way more than his, and said, I'm going to fix that. And I love you too much to let you live like this. And so he sacrifices. He gives of his only begotten Son, that whosoever shall believe in him will not perish but have everlasting life. In that moment, I remember feeling this tremendous sense. I felt this finality, that all this time I'd been looking for something. There was an elation over the fact that I don't have to prove myself to God anymore. I don't have to be tortured by the fact that I fall short all the time. I am now free to worship him, not out of a sense of attaining heaven, not out of a sense of being worried about hell, but out of a sense of gratitude. And that was so freeing, such a freedom from that. I remember sitting with a friend, and I was still wrestling with this stuff, and I had said to him, all these things are true in Christianity that I was hoping was true somewhere else. And then he asked me, he said, what's holding you back then? If all of this is true and it's speaking to your heart, what's holding you back? There's joy here. There's awe here. And I sat with him and a few others, praying to the Father in the name of the Son, through the power of the Spirit, to receive my salvation. I would urge you to investigate the truth. But if I say anything that matters in this time, it's that the journey is tough, the consequences are real, but the reward is great, and it's so worth it. It's so worth it. Ask yourself why you believe what you believe. I'd asked plenty of Christians that, and if you're a Muslim and you know any Christians, you probably ask them the same question, like, why do you believe what you believe? I think it's important for us to always ask ourselves why. What's the fundamental reason we believe something? I found the truth that if God is truly the greatest possible being, then the cross is the greatest possible expression of God's love for you and for me. And it's not just a matter of hope, it's a matter of history, it's a matter of fact. And that's what the truth is. My name's Abdu Murray, and I found the truth.